All right, welcome everybody. Liz, could you give me share screen privileges? I'm just going to share, I think, 2 slides real quick. Welcome everybody. I see everyone coming in the e-door. All right, just so you know where you are. This is the room we're in. Oops. Yeah. Okay, we have a lot of people signed up for this evening. We're excited to have you here. I'm excited to have our guest here. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Jennifer Coffey, and I have the pleasure of serving as the Executive Director of ANJAC, the Association of New Jersey Environmental Commissions. And as always for our programs that are held online, this session will be recorded and we will post it to our YouTube channel. So you can go ahead and check that out there. We will also be sending out a recording to everyone who has registered for this event. And if you have questions, please use the Q&A option rather than the chat option. We're going to be posting some links throughout the night in the chat option for you to get additional information about the corporate business tax that we're talking about tonight. But use the Q&A option if you have questions. If we don't get to your question, or if you have a question about something entirely different, please feel free to email us at info@anjac.org. And just as a reminder, ANJAC's primary mission is to serve environmental commissions on whatever issue it is that they're working on and they're passionate about. So your local issues, your county issues, your statewide issues, please contact us at info@anjac.org. And we do this, we advance our mission by engaging in diverse and inclusive practices through leadership, partnership with wonderful groups like NJLCV and others, education, advocacy, and lots of policy and stewardship work. So we welcome everyone here tonight. We're thrilled to have you. There we go. Zoom has called it something new, end share. So Ed, thank you so much for being with us tonight. It seems that I'm multiplying on screen, Liz. I'm not entirely sure why. There are two of me at this moment.
Hi, Jen. This is me, Hannah.
Oh, hi, Hannah. Okay, Liz will take care of that. Thanks, everyone, for being here. Ed Potosnik, the Executive Director of New Jersey League of Conservation Voters, is here with us this evening. He is a tremendous advocate for New Jersey, for our environment, and a great personal friend of mine. So, Ed, welcome. Thank you for being here. Do you want to tell us a little bit about NJLCV?
Absolutely. Well, first of all, I'm glad to be here. I'm really happy folks are interested in this important topic to preserve the beauty of New Jersey for generations to come. A little bit about New Jersey LCV. We are a statewide environmental organization dedicated to protecting, preserving our clean air, our open spaces, clean drinking water, and waterways to recreate in for every New Jerseyan, no matter their zip code. And we work in collaboration with very mutual, love you as well, and working with the organization at ANJAC and all the folks there, and looking to community members to also help us set an agenda in Trenton with the Assembly and the Senate, and to send laws to the governor for signature and enact them to enhance the protections that we have in New Jersey. We'll talk about this a little bit, but New Jersey is the most densely populated state in the nation, with 13% of the land covered in concrete, pavement, buildings, roadways, all that stuff. And that's a challenge for all the things that we need to survive, most importantly, clean drinking water, because the land is a filter for our water. And we take that really serious in the work we do, but we wouldn't be able to do the work we did without great partners like the folks at ANJAC. And in my personal capacity, I am also an elected official in Franklin Township. I'm a council member, and I sit on an environmental commission as the liaison. And I tell you, they're very hardworking, and I really appreciate all of you who are on an environmental commission for what you do every day to lift up and help direct elected officials in doing the right thing. It's a lot to maintain, and we really count on each of you in that capacity. So today I'll be talking a little bit more as an advocate, And I'm also chair of the Keep It Green Coalition through my role at New Jersey LCV, which is a statewide it's a coalition of over 165 organizations dedicated to preserving open spaces, forests, farms, and historic sites in the state of New Jersey. And it's been very successful. In fact, in 2014, members of the Keep It Green Coalition led an effort to amend the Constitution to dedicate a portion of the corporate business tax to the preservation of open spaces.
We're going to get into that, right?
Yeah, we're going to get into it. But just to tell you a little bit about Keep It Green as well. And I'm really here as the chair of Keep It Green, probably more than those other roles I mentioned. Yep.
Awesome. Thanks, Ed. And Anjak is absolutely a member of New Jersey Keep It Green. We're one of the founding members. Proud to be part of that coalition for a very long time, personally through multiple jobs myself, and to have supported funding that we have in place for preserving our farmland, historic places, green acres and blue acres. So let's get into it, because that's what we're here to talk about tonight, is funding and what people can do to help us protect this really capacity initiative so that we can keep preserving the places that we love. So we're talking about corporate business tax, and this is a policy wonky thing that you and I get into, right? Because we're policy wonks. But what is it all about, and how does it affect environmental funding?
Yeah, so the easiest way to describe it, just like we pay income tax, corporations pay taxes on money that they earn. And that's pretty much a standard income stream. It's actually the third largest in the state of New Jersey. Why this moment really matters for the corporate business tax, as I was alluding to earlier, in 2014, when the voters, 65% of new voters supported amending the Constitution to dedicate a small portion of that corporate business tax to open space and historic site preservation. They did so knowing we're the most densely populated state and we have challenges. And if we don't do something, we're in a race against the bulldozers. New Jersey's not going to look the same, not going to function the same for our health and our quality of life. And we need to do something about it. And so this is very well supported. That means that money flows to those critical programs from that small percentage. In, I guess, 2018, the governor signed a surcharge on the corporate business tax of just 2.5%. And this is really important. It's on the wealthiest corporations in our state, corporations making over $1 million in profits. And that's only 2% of all the corporations in our state. So this isn't the mom and pop sort of shops. This is Amazon and Walmart and Bank of America, big businesses. And with that increase, that surge, because of the dedication in the constitutional amendment, a portion of that is dedicated to open space preservation. And importantly, there's even more money that goes to other environmental programs as well. So we estimate each year that corporate business tax surcharge, this is on top of the regular corporate business tax, generates $1 billion, and 6% goes to the environment. And that means there's it's just simple math, $60 million going to environmental programs. 48 million of that goes to open space, historic site, farmland, and park preservation. And that's what's at stake. It's set to expire at the end of this year. And unfortunately, Governor Murphy, as well as the speaker maybe hasn't been on the record as much, and the Senate president kind of is leaning maybe to keeping it around. But Governor Murphy is opposed to keeping this surcharge in place, which means over 10 years, New Jersey will lose $480 million in funding that would be available for investments in preserving open spaces. And with it, $120 million for other environmental programs like hazardous site cleanup. So I hope I did a good job there. If you want me to follow up on any points, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And we're gonna post a link towards the end of this webinar that will send people to a place where they can read the numbers. So they've got that in text on a website. But what you're saying is that over 10 years, we're looking at about $500 million loss in capacity for preservation programs.
And even I was going to say each county, that equates to about $2.5 million a year, or $25 million over 10 years. That's real money in communities to preserve parcels of land before they're disturbed and forever changed.
Yeah, and we know things aren't getting cheaper. So
Not at all.
cost of everything, including land, is going up. So let's talk about that community part and the importance of funding and capacity. We co-host with you, Jack, and New Jersey League of Conservation Voters, your education fund, a lot of webinars, and we're working together to support some bills in the legislature regarding warehouses, right? We see warehouses everywhere, from Warren and Sussex County all the way down, through Mercer County, where I am, Burlington County. It's all over the state. And I know your municipality, where you're a council person, that's not the hat you have on tonight, is, I believe, the only municipality in the state at this point who has said, we're not going to allow warehouses or not allow them in certain areas. So, your Franklin Township, Somerset, is really out in front on that. But a lot of other communities are feeling the stress of warehouses these days. And there was a recent success story about a week ago in Warren County, where a huge, nearly 600-acre warehouse, 600 acres, we still have that kind of land left in New Jersey, but it's farmland right now. So there was a 600-acre warehouse development plan that was ditched last week because the SADC, the State Agricultural Development Committee, and the state of New Jersey came forward and said, look, we've got the money, we're going to preserve this. We hear the community. We know you don't want this here. This is prime agricultural soil. We're going to go ahead and preserve this. And there are a number of legislators who are on the record. There was a press release they put out. The Senate and Assembly Republicans, State Senator Doug Steinhardt said, quote, "I'm proud of the hard work that's going into preserving this property." He says these are exactly the kind of outcomes we can achieve when multiple stakeholders come together. And Assemblyman Peterson said, quote, "This is why I've always voted for legislation that provides funding for farmland preservation since I was a freeholder." He continues and says, "This is a great example of why I have consistently valued preservation over development, especially in a situation like this. This community is breathing a big sigh of relief, and we're cheering right alongside them." So if this 2.5% in the corporate business tax surcharge goes away at the end of the year, what's that going to mean to communities in terms of the pressure that they're feeling? And Liz is going to post some links in the chat so we can read more about these success stories and what people are saying about them.
Yeah, first, I just want to congratulate everyone involved in pushing back against that warehouse development. It was not the right place. These were, as you mentioned, prime agricultural lands. The way the sloping was on the property made it challenging, which would have other negative impacts on the environment when you change the hydrology or the topography, which changes the hydrology. It's important for us to have a bigger sort of solution to the warehouse problem. But ultimately, what it means for this conversation is 2 projects like that would not be able to be stopped. And how they were stopped, and I'm not sure if you buried the lead here, or maybe I wasn't listening carefully enough, but how it was stopped is they put in this proposal. The proposal got a lot of pushback because it was a bad idea. And eventually how it was resolved is they used this open space money to preserve the 600 acres. So it would always remain prime agricultural soil. That means our kids and our grandkids will have food to eat, and we won't have a warehouse in the wrong place. It was a win-win for everyone. And the developer got that money back. That was about $1.4 million. So if 2.5 million is available roughly, and this is on average, in every county each year because of this surcharge, that would mean about 2 projects like that couldn't be stopped, or those lands would have been bulldozed down for something else, whether it's a strip mall or something else where we're not redeveloping and we're just chopping down land that's very limited in our state. The beautiful areas that we really appreciate the most, that give us our joy for recreation, for a chance, like in COVID-19, getting outside and spending more time. And I hope everyone's spending more time outside still. It wasn't just a one-time thing. But we know recreation, hiking, fishing, hunting. If you like to breathe clean air, if you like to drink clean water, this funding is critical because the land is a filter for our air and our water. The land is where we go to recreate. It's critical for us in our state. So if this corporate business tax goes away, that project may have gone on as planned. That's the kind of reality that we're facing. And we really hope that folks that are on environmental commissions, folks that are here today and others will speak up loudly, because this is not just a Republican issue. You listed 2 Republicans who were speaking out for open space funding. This is affecting democratically led towns, towns with Democrats and Republicans, towns with independents, the whole gamut of political parties and leadership, but also the people who live there. They are all different political parties. And this open space funding is really important as a tool to preserve the very few remaining acres we have.
Yeah, I think those are great points, Ed. In New Jersey, we've long enjoyed the benefit of having Republicans, Democrats, and independents support environmental programs, because we are the garden state after all. So they understand the importance of the food we're producing. It's important to our economy. It's important to our health. It's important because we all love our Jersey tomatoes and peaches and blueberries and cranberries and all that good stuff. And just to harken back to 2014, when the constitutional amendment was passed by the voters. So we amended in New Jersey, we amended the Constitution to guarantee funding for preservation programs. And voters in New Jersey came out with 2/3 majority to say, yes, absolutely, we want sustainable funding for our preservation programs. We get it, and this is important, such to the tune that they amended the Constitution of New Jersey to do it. So I think that's important to remember. This is more than bipartisan. This is almost universal in New Jersey.
And we're really
so we
proud
talked a lot. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
I was going to say, just really proud of the Keep It Green Coalition, but even more proud of voters who really put their money where their mouth was on one of these challenges our state faces as being the most densely populated in a race. By 2050, we'll reach full build out. So that's around the corner, unfortunately. And this land preservation program is critical for keeping, as you say, and I say, the garden in the garden state.
And when you say full build out, when we use that term, we talk about all the land that can be preserved will be preserved, and all the land that can be developed will be developed. So then we're talking exclusively about a redevelopment game at that point. So that year is coming upon us quickly.
Yep.
So we've talked a good bit about preservation, but I want to talk about the other bit of funding that is constitutionally dedicated. So there's 2.5% of the surcharge equals about $48 million annually for preservation. But there's about 12 million that goes to hazardous site cleanup. So I want to talk about that for just a little bit. About 10 years ago, New Jersey had approximately 30,000 known contaminated sites. We also call them brownfields. New Jersey is an old industrial state. We've got some big contaminated sites, and we have some smaller, lesser contaminated sites. So lots of gas stations with underground storage tanks that once upon a time we thought it was okay to just have a single lined tank and to fill that up with gas and bury it in the ground. We do things a little smarter now with double liners and monitoring, but we've got a lot of legacy contamination. And we've done a great job in the last 10 years of cleaning up a lot of those sites. So we went from about 30,000 known contaminated sites to under 15,000 known contaminated sites. And part of the corporate business tax that the voters chose through the constitutional amendment to dedicate funding to is for hazardous site cleanup. So that reflects back on this surcharge and loss of about $12 million a year if the surcharge does end by the end of the year. So I just wanted to take a moment and reflect on that this is about preservation, but also cleaning up legacy contamination. And Liz has got a link she's going to put in the chat. So if you want to see if any of these known contaminated sites or brownfields are in your community, you can go ahead and use, we like the conservation blueprint map, which pulls in DEP data. We think it's pretty easy to use. It's a little easier to use than some of the DEP data sets, but it pulls in their data. So Liz is going to post that and you guys can play around with that later. So Ed, any thoughts on that?
Well, it seems like a no-brainer to want to invest more money in getting pollution out of our land that's making its way into our waterways, We want to keep it out of our drinking wells. We want to keep it out of the areas where we're swimming, from the places people are fishing and doing subsistence fishing for food. And that means we need money. So $12 million is a lot of money to help with those programs. And it's going to feel like a lot more when it's not available, no doubt.
Yeah, thanks. So we're talking about the 6% that the voters dedicated of the corporate business tax. So whether you've got the 2.5 with the 2.5% surcharge, that's 60 million annually for preservation and hazardous site cleanup. But that's just 6%. So there's a whole other 94%, right? And what does that go for? What does it mean? And how much is that if that goes away? What does that mean for the state of New Jersey?
Well, it's not constitutionally dedicated. So it is up to the budget process where that money would be invested and how it would be used. But earlier today, we were at the State House and we had a rally to call attention to this issue. And we heard from all kinds of folks that would be negatively impacted from the housing community, things like rental assistance and foreclosures, something that has environmental support and also makes sense for what we're talking about here, which is transportation. I mean, over and over again, folks were explaining, and we think it's a really good investment. New Jersey Transit and our transportation system is woefully underfunded, and they are going to be in a deficit. That deficit is roughly the same amount as this surcharge, which is peculiar why you wouldn't keep it in place to help fill that hole, to make sure we don't go backwards. And actually, I think we need to be making more investments in our public transportation system, making it so that every New Jerseyan doesn't need a car. And that's going to be hard work because we were built around the car. We think about a lot of our business parts, et cetera. But the transportation system needs to be affordable, reliable, and that needs to also be clean and in the right places. And with less funding, and we're talking about, in this case, it's almost the rest of it. 94% of $1 billion is 940 million. That's important for investments like transportation. We also heard from healthcare workers about pension shortfalls and what that impact means for them and their healthcare plans, and the services they provide. And really the list goes on. Remember, this is all to give the wealthiest 2% of corporations a massive tax cut on the backs of middle-class families that are now going to have to pay higher fares for New Jersey Transit, for their buses and trains. All these costs aren't going to go away. They're just going to be displaced, and they're going to be displaced likely on families that are already struggling to pay their bills. And in fact, I'll just make one other note. It's 2% of the wealthiest corporations that pay this tax, but actually 70% of the money that's collected is corporations making more than $10 million in profits. So, again, it's not your local stores. They're not profiting that much, but it's also, they're really mega corporations. And if I could say one more thing, I don't know it's in the question that you asked, but corporations really need New Jersey to be a place that has good transportation, a place that has good, clean drinking water. We know Budweiser is right next to the Newark airport because our water is clean and it's affordable. I want to say it's cheap, but probably is cheap compared to other states, or that factory would be in those states. So to take away the investment in the land, to take away the investment in the transportation that makes it so your workers can get to work, I think it's just very short-sighted. And it concerns me. And so all in all, beyond the open space, all the other investments and where the money would be going to are really critical for families in every region of our state.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And for us to really keep in mind that this is about the wealthiest corporations. So it's corporations who have $1 million in profit every year, not just revenue, but profit. So it is not your local hair salon and your local coffee shop and your local bakery. These are the Amazons, the Walmarts, the same companies that we're struggling with on a community level regarding warehouses. So now what the proposal is to give them a tax cut while hurting environmental and community programs. So that's why we're working on this, because we understand this is a little policy wonky, but it's nonsensical. to us. So that's why we're really pushing the legislature and trying to talk about this as much as we can. I've got one more question, and then we've got a few from our audience members in the Q&A. So if you've got questions, go ahead and post them in the Q&A. My last question for you, Ed, is what can people do to stop this slash in funding for environmental programs?
Well, I would say do what you do best. Environmental commissions and local communities have been an incubator for innovative policy for a long time, and particularly ANJAC. I mean, we saw with the plastic bag ban and paper bag ban, that started in local communities across the state with leadership from environmental commissions. And what we need now is your help in this, to inform and educate with a municipal resolution. I'll be proud to say in Franklin Township, we passed it. We followed the right process. We went through our agriculture committee, unanimously supported. We went through our environmental commission. What was the other committee? Agriculture, open space, environment, all unanimously supported. And of course, the council unanimously supported a resolution calling on the governor and the legislature to keep the surcharge in place because it is important to our town. And we want to do that at the township level. We want to do that at the county level. We need folks to hear about it, hear from you, and we really need to put the pressure on that they need to help connecting the dots. $1 billion in a multi-billion-dollar budget, they're like, well, whatever. But when they hear that funding to protect their community from warehouses that don't belong is on the chopping block, I hope it gives them pause. And this effort, part of today, this webinar, is to help inform you so you can play that leadership role in informing your community. So I know ANJAC has lots of resources. A lot of links are being shared. It's as simple as pushing through the process in your municipality, a resolution calling on the governor to continue the open space, well, in this case, the CBT surcharge by resolution. And that'll send a very strong message that we can continue to build momentum and we'll end up, I think, in a good place. But it's a steep hill to climb because it seems like corporations are ever more powerful. And they have very, very wealthy, deep-pocketed lobbyists that have lots of connections. And they'll be telling a different story. We can probably, I don't want to give advertising to what that is, but it's kind of like play me the smallest violin. Corporations are making record profits. Prices are record highs, while they should probably be lower. That's giving room for those profits. And they want to keep them all. Meanwhile, our communities are going to suffer with less clean air, clean water, more traffic, more development. And all the other things we care about will also suffer. Transportation investments, making sure our New Jersey is ready for that next generation of leadership and innovation, those infrastructure pieces. So that's really the message there. Do what ANJAC does best and environmental commissions do best. And every community, conservative, liberal, and everyone in between, pass a resolution calling for the continuation of the surcharge on the corporate business tax. That's the best thing you can do. The second best thing, I think, and it's, maybe it's a tie because it's a little shorter in time, call your senator, call your assembly member, teach them and teach them what they need to know, give them resources, but also tell them how important this is to you and that they have the power to do something about it. Basics. It's the things you guys already do well, and we need more of it. And that's why we're calling on all of you and hopefully providing as much information as you need to support you in those efforts.
Thanks, Ed. That's great. Ed and I have great contacts in the legislature, and we work those relationships, and we've got great, energetic young staff and volunteers who help us lobby. But we don't have pockets that are as deep as Amazon or Walmart or some of those other big business lobbyists, the bankers. But when you do pass a resolution, we can then use that to communicate with legislators to say, look, on the very local level, this is what your people are thinking. This is what your towns are saying. They don't like this. And so having those resolutions is incredibly important. Make sure you send a copy to ANJAC. There's a link in the chat. All the information you need about the numbers that Ed and I have talked about are in that resolution. What this funding does is in that resolution. So it's all laid out for you. You can also email us if you've got questions at info@anjac.org. I'll ask Liz to put that email address in the chat as well. And then, as Ed said, call your senator and your 2 assembly representatives. And that link is also in the chat to figure out, well, who the heck are they if you don't have them on speed dial like Ed and I do. But it's really important because you may think, oh, I called them, I left a voicemail, maybe they didn't hear, I don't know if it made a difference. When you rack up the numbers, and sometimes the numbers are just 20 or 30 people that call and fill up voicemail, Ed and I will get phone calls to say, what are you doing? And we said, we're talking about issues that are important to people. That's what we're doing. And I have had legislators ask me a number of times, will you call off your people? And I'm like, oh, we have people? Yeah, we do. We do have people. We have people who care and are passionate. And we say, no, are you going to take action on this? And until you take action, we're going to ask them to keep calling. We're going to ask them to keep, tweeting at you or tagging you on Instagram and, doing the things that you do, but make the phone calls, pass the resolutions. That will help us in our efforts to, negotiate and work with the legislature. So really appreciate all that, Ed. We've got a couple questions. We are going to wrap this up by 8 o'clock at the absolute latest, maybe a little bit earlier. But I'm going to read the questions because that makes for a better recording for those who are going to come back and watch this later. Mimi asks, if there's money available for land preservation, do you know why the Save the Drew Forest effort to get funding is so challenged? Can't this group access those funds? So Ed, I don't know if you want to answer that or you'd like me to take it.
Yeah, so I can share a little bit. So the way land preservation funding works or investments, municipalities are only able to purchase the land for like what its value is on the open market. Sometimes the value to an individual buyer or a constituency, a university, in this case, Drew, is higher than that. And so there's a gap between what's allowable by the state, because we have to be stewards of your funds, anyone who's monitoring those open space funds. So the gap between what the market value is and then the value the folks want to buy it out. In the property, the Jindal property in White Township, those numbers were very well aligned. They took the actual value. It was able to be purchased. If there's a gap in between there, then private funding needs to be raised. And so I would say that's one piece. I don't know on the Drew Forest, maybe you know more about the numbers, probably likely part of it. And some people think in their mind their property is worth a lot more. So they won't sell, which means they're willing to sell to someone who's going to build condos because it's more valuable to them than maybe just as land. Land is always, undeveloped land is always cheaper than developable land. So that could be one factor. I think the sort of second factor in the need for the funding is some of these funds actually require matches, so that it's not all on any one fund's back. It's not all on the county. It's not all on the local. But there are many layers that get used together. So, for example, a local municipality may have a levy for open space. A county may have one, and we know this funding is at the state level. Those add together to make the deal happen. Also, federal funds that are available through the Great Outdoors Act, but it used to be called the Land and Water Conservation Fund, which is collected from oil and gas revenues. So all this stuff is cobbled together, and then deals are put together. And sometimes they come short, and that's where the private funding becomes very critical if you want to save the parcel.
Yeah, you hit it right.
Jed?
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. You need to have a willing seller, and negotiating on the value of the land is important. So as Ed said, in New Jersey, we do require, I believe it's 3 fair market appraisals when you're preserving land, because we can't pay exorbitant prices because somebody thinks or feels that their land is worth more. It has to be a fair value appraisal. And the average of those 3 is taken. And so really it's if the owner of the land is willing to sell for that price. And the more pressure they get from the public and the more incentive they get, sometimes the more willing they become. But it really is a negotiation game. So Vicky has go ahead. Yeah, Vicky's got a question.
Points, yeah.
She wants to know the proportional impact of losing $48 million annually. So what's the budget for Green Acres program this year? I don't know the budget for Green Acres specifically, but I do know the whole preservation lot. But go ahead, Ed.
Yeah, so it's basically 25%. I mean, that's what it comes down to. The income for the land preservation line is about $200 million. So $48 million is roughly 25% of that. That's a big reduction. That's a serious, significant reduction. It likely means 25% less land preserved. I mean, things change in price, but that's the short answer, very back of the envelope math. 48 million of 200 million is 25%.
Yep. Yeah, that's exactly right.
So
And
there was one more question that's related to that, which is like, how does it relate to my town?
yes, that's the next one. Anne asks, how can I find out how much money my municipality will lose if this cut goes through? That will help the city council with the resolution, I believe she's saying.
Okay, so same sort of answer. It is a little different. It's impossible to know because it's the future. And again, I described how the money's cobbled together from different sources, and sometimes they're done in different ratios. So like I was just doing simple math when I said every county will lose 2.5 million. That's just taking the total amount divided by the number of counties. No, some may lose 5 million because their projects are more expensive, they're maybe more densely developed, and the acreage price is higher, or their land is more valuable, or there's quite frankly more of it. So that you can't buy land whether it doesn't exist to preserve. So some counties benefit in different amounts, but in general, it's 2.5. So what I guess I would say and feel comfortable with is it's a 25% reduction in what will be available to the town. Not what the town will get, what will be available to the town for its land preservation efforts from the state of New Jersey. And I think that's going to give people a pause.
Yeah, that's a great point. And we've got two of the same questions. What's the timeline for the resolution? And I'm happy to take that one. Well, we're in something funny called lame duck. And so lame duck starts the evening of the election and runs through this year, well, next year, January 9th. The new legislature is sworn in on January 10th of next year. So we're in this lame duck period. I would say the sooner the better, because we are really looking to ramp up pressure on having conversations about restoring this funding. So the sooner you can get it to us, the better. But we'll take it whenever you can make it happen.
Yeah, and I would say like the month of December is an important time. The more resolutions we can get in December, the more we'll have in hand to bring to the decision makers. Of course, you can still make the phone calls while we're passing the resolutions through what can be a cumbersome process, right? We kind of customized ours in Franklin. We talked about all the great work we've already done and also identified some of the work that still yet needs to be done. So it's really clear to the public what's on the line if there's a reduction in funding. So we did some quick research on that, but I think it's likely you'll find folks to be very supportive. They just are not thinking about it. And so this is awesome opportunity to share with you the details, and now you can help share them in your community. And I mean, most of the conversations I had in my town were, oh, that's a no-brainer. Yeah, let's do this, you know. And of course, some people need a little more time to ruminate, but as quick as possible in December and beyond is probably okay. They finish up in January with a lame duck session. So we really have a clock ticking for December.
Yeah, and Ed and I will be there pulling some late nights at the legislature working on this.
Last voting
I think
session,
you made
the 21st.
some great points there, Ed. So customize the resolution. That's a template for you, and it's got all the bare bones information in there. We'd love to hear about what else you're doing in your town and what you're working on. But this really is about capacity, and the numbers add up pretty quickly. So if you're talking about $48 million in a year over 10 years, it's a loss of about $500 million for preservation funding. The other issue is we know that we're really good at preserving land, or we've been pretty good at preserving land in New Jersey. We're not making any more land. It's going to be built or it's going to be preserved by about 2050, but we've also got to take care of land. And so there is the ability to use funds for stewardship as well. So this is really capacity funding that's incredibly important all around, no matter what county you're in. And as Ed said, you'll find that people are receptive to this. In 2014, 65% of voters, 20 of 21 counties voted yes on this. So there is enormous amount of support Republican, Democrat, Independent, up and down across the state for this. So we ask you to raise this up and bring this as an issue to your EC, your open space, your ag committee, your governing body, and then send us the resolution so that we can use that in lobbying conversations with the legislature. So Ed, is there anything else you'd like to add?
I just want to say thanks, Jen, for putting this together, for the work that ANJAC does, and to all the folks who joined and will be hopefully watching recordings and spreading the word. I know you are there as a resource for all those efforts, but we really appreciate, and there's nothing better than an active environmental commission to improve the quality of the land, air, and water in a municipality. And it's a serious responsibility. And so I really appreciate everyone who takes time to volunteer in this capacity, and you're making a difference. And here's another chance to have a lasting legacy for our kids and grandkids. And we stand ready at New Jersey LCV, but more importantly at the Keep It Green Coalition, to support these efforts and continue to raise this issue loudly and clearly for decision makers, and particularly Governor Murphy and the members of the Senate and the Assembly in New Jersey.
Thanks, Ed. And we appreciate you at LCV and all of your staff and the work that you do across the state on these big policy issues, and your partnership and your leadership for New Jersey Keep It Green, which is a coalition of 160 different organizations. So we're all rowing in the same direction on this one. So thank you, Liz, for helping us organize this.
Yes,
and doing all the tech work for us. If you've got any questions, email us at info@anjac.org. You can also reach NJLCV at information@njlcv.org. So go ahead and reach out to us if you've got any additional questions. Thank you all for being here tonight, and we will return 14 minutes to your evening for you. Thanks, Ed. Thanks, Liz. Take care. Have a good night.